Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into this VidCon Now VidTalk session. My name is Brendan Gann. I'll be your moderator. Just some background on me. I'm a partner and chief social officer at Mechanism. We're an independent creative agency, but I've been in the creator space since 2006. So our talk today is all about the future. What are our predictions for 2022? What trends do we see on the horizon? And what should we be really keeping an eye on? And I'm pumped. We've got a lot of excellent panelists here today that are experts in the creator economy space. So this will be a great conversation. Some quick housekeeping. If any of you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and we'll do our best to get to them throughout the talk. So with that, I will hand it over to the panelists to introduce themselves. Gene, you want to go first? Take it away.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Brendan. Thank you for having us. Hello, everyone at VidCon Live. Happy Tuesday to everyone. My name is Eugene Lee. I am the CEO of Channel Meter. We are a payment platform. We help get creators paid. We paid over almost $1 billion to over 1 million creators, and we have a suite of products from creator pay to creator cash that's really involved in the financial side of the creator economy.
Awesome. All right, and next up we've got Mike Forehouse. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that quite right.
You said it perfectly.
Okay, cool. I should have asked beforehand.
Hello, everybody at VidCon. Good to see you all. I miss you all. I've been an analyst in the gaming and digital video, digital content space for about 27, 28 years. Did a big study in 2005 for the New York Times. I told them that all the print media could become like TV shows, but they said video would never be big enough on the internet. Well, I don't think they had any idea, and I think we still have a lot more coming.
Awesome. And next up, we've got Jacques from VidCon.
Hey, thanks, Brendan. Hi, guys. So I'm Jack. I'm programming director for VidCon International. So I work across all our international events, helping the local markets with programming our events. So it's good to be this side of the camera. Normally I'm the other side. So this is.
But you have the worst lighting. Isn't that somewhat ironic?
I know. See, I'm not used to being this side, you see. So I'm normally the one telling other people how to put their lighting to make themselves look good. So.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for being here, and I apologize on the mispronunciation. But before we went live, we were sort of chatting a little bit about the creator economy startup ecosystem, and I think I'd love to dive right back into that. We were saying before we went live how frothy the market is. There's a ton of new creator economy startups. I'd love to open up to the group. What's going to happen to all these companies? Who's going to succeed or fail, and why? Does anyone want to take a first crack at that?
Well, I'm very bullish on this topic. So I write an annual column for Forbes.com on my predictions for the year, and I've been talking about this as it's been emerging more and more with, Roblox, who I met, 7, 8 years ago. I mean, we used to call it UGC. Now we call it creator content. I mean, I've seen in some of my studies as much as half of 18 to 34-year-olds say that they've either made a video or made a game or made a piece of a video or game that they posted or shared. Now, a small sliver of them indicate making some money, but more than the year before and more than the year before. And I think we're still in the early stage. I mean, there are 3 billion connected humans. There are 7.x billion humans in the world. We are so early in the amount of money that can go to content creators, and not everybody wants a ton of money, but the tools and the new ecosystem and just the fact that this is great content. I mean, quite frankly, I would so much rather watch TikTok for an hour than broadcast TV.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to kind of freestyle off that point, where I think because there is so many people creating content, it's so accessible. The content that people are creating now has stepped up. That I think now especially is making things super exciting, because people have to be competitive with each other, and it's not just a case of mediocre will do, which I think has now suddenly started showing with the content that's being produced out there.
Yeah. To add to that, where we sit, and we're a venture-backed startup ourselves, and so we see that in a couple angles. Well, first, the inbound from the investors who obviously see what's going on and they want to place bets. But the kind of the way we see this is there's a lot of institutional capital. It's far more accessible. There's a lot more players, and also to institutional capital, which didn't foray into venture before. You see these large PE houses, these large institutional funds, even family offices are starting to bet earlier life cycles. So you see big guys like Insight, you see folks like Cotu who are going earlier in the life cycle of this. And so they're betting far more in this space. And we're starting to see venture funds who have kids who are, watching creators. That's their TV. They see the voracious appetite their kids are spending on this, and they see this as an investment opportunity, especially as more and more dollars flow into the space, outside investment, ad dollars, etc. That too in itself, we see a lot of creators who are also becoming angels themselves. You see a lot of creators who have built a career, have built a business, who are recognizing to expand their portfolio. They may not understand stock or the securities markets as well, but they see their friends or colleagues who they've worked with are really interesting products that are coming out there, and they want to vote with their dollars. So we're starting to see more and more of that. We ourselves even brought a bigger creator, which we're going to announce later this year as part of our funding, just because we believe, one, to have that vote, but also to have kind of a perspective from the creator side. So we're seeing more institutional dollar flow into the space, even bigger institutional dollars, and then also too we're seeing a lot of creators themselves be as angels, and then also too a lot of the folks from the industry side who were part of the industry from early on, as they extended their career, as they grew, as they were part of, let's say, MCNs who had big exits. This is a space that they know intimately well. This is a space they're most comfortable with. They're placing bets. So overall, we're seeing a lot more investments coming, which is exciting because it shines a bigger spotlight in our insular ecosystem here.
I think I agree with all that. I'd love to sort of double click and go a little bit deeper. I think, we're all drinking the Kool-Aid in terms of broadly the creator economy, but the, Mike, you referenced the platforms, and I guess these big platforms, they're capturing so much value. And then you've got the creators who individually are building, a lot of them are building pretty good businesses. Is there a space though for third parties to come in and build businesses that are scalable, that won't be disrupted by the platforms? For example, there's tons of merch businesses out there. The creators are using it and they're essentially funneling their traffic and their audiences from these platforms to their Shopify stores, etc. What's to stop, say, these platforms from stepping in and building these products, offering these services? I guess long term, it seems like, given all the money going into the space, all these third-party companies, my assumption is that not all of them are going to make it. And I'd love to hear, sort of from a vertical standpoint or type of business, what you guys think in terms of which businesses have a shot. If you want to name names, I'm all ears. If not, we can go by category. But I'd love to hear, sort of drill down, what categories or businesses do we think are going to do really well going forward?
Gaming, I think, is one of the top ones because it's a immersive experience. It's a area where people pay a ton of time and attention. Unity's built on the back of people making games, both professionals and amateurs. The whole thing about this whole session is we have to recognize is that Les Moonves, the deposed head of CBS, he might think XYZ is great content, Love Boat, but I might think, Noah Shansky's great content on TikTok. And there's just a lot of, TikTok versus Quibi. All these rich Hollywood guys thought Quibi was all this great content. Really, I thought it was crap and it was expensive and I wasn't interested in it. So games will be the first one. I think you will not see as many programmers. You won't see the 40 cable channels, the 5, broadcast guys and whatnot repeated because I think it'll be a more fractionated a more fragmented environment, at least for a number of years. The other thing is, and at least YouTube and others recognize this, is I would not want to watch videos made by people at YouTube. I mean, I know people at YouTube. I love people at YouTube, but I don't want to watch.
They just scaled down their original content team. So Susan Daniels left. I think we're starting to see a little bit of that.
Yeah, I didn't want to hang out with the guys that were underwriting Matisse and Surratt, etc. I wanted to look at Matisse and Surratt, and their financiers were not programmers. So I think the power is with the creator. And we'll see, by the way, how long some of these last. But I think some of them will last a long time, particularly some of these artists. Of the music's been huge, as you know.
Yep. Brendan, to address that point, I think there's a few ways to see this. Talking about like which ones won't make it, what not. You obviously see a lot of startups that created tools, and I do think the platforms are going to consolidate a lot of them. There are plenty of new startups that were creating media kits for creators. Well, YouTube just announced they have a new tool to help create media kits, and I think Instagram is going to do something similar too. So you're going to start seeing consolidation. We see investment in a few verticals. Obviously the tools, right? The tools that either help creators run businesses or new tools to focus on the creators. That raised a lot of money throughout 2021. I think we'll see a little bit over that over 2022, but I do think we'll see some consolidation there. Other areas that we see investment, obviously crypto NFT, huge area of a lot of dollars. I think just the NFT or the crypto economy in itself raised something over $10 billion over last year. So obviously there's going to see tremendous growth, especially as it aligns with the creator economy. And then we're also starting to see investment dollars, less sexy areas, but things like rights, or content such as music, or content such as TV rights. So we're starting to see institutional capital invest in this because it actually generates cash flow. When you have vehicles like YouTube and other platforms who are starting to spend, pay out rights and get more into licensing, you're going to see a lot more players either consolidate or get institutional capital to acquire more catalogs and more assets on that side. So we're seeing a lot of movement on that. And then also as well, there's kind of an ancillary category where we're starting to see new platforms come up. We're starting to see, beyond tools, new interesting ways to break the social platform model out there. So there's interesting things that are going to come up, especially with Web3, right? People are envisioning what does a YouTube look like in this world, and that's definitely a whole nother topic in itself. But overall, we see consolidation, a lot more dollars, and then in those 3 or 4 verticals I just discussed.
Love it. Jack, did you have anything to add to that? If not, I've got a good question to jump into.
I was just going to add on top, because the merchandise side is something that I'm personally quite interested in and find really exciting, especially as we go forward. So kind of to your question, third-party companies that may or may not survive. I really think that platforms are going to start to, they've already started integrating them, but I think that's going to just become more and more, where it's just going to be one-stop shops, where everything is just on one. And with everything like that, as it evolves, some companies won't make it. Some, I think, will either get acquired or kind of build within and integrate within the platforms. So I'm really excited to kind of see how that all plays out.
Yeah. I think the social commerce is fascinating, and I see the Amazon Live sponsorship button. I think people are sleeping on, in general, live commerce. It is so massive, and whenever I talk to any of these creators who do like an Amazon Live, they're like, "Oh, it's the best! Like, I'm killing it."
It's gigantic in China.
In China, it's like what, 200 billion or some insane amount.
Well, to Mike's point, something like 20 to 30 billion dollars were paid out to creators outside of China. Last year, something like 26 billion dollars were paid to creators within China, and of that, over half was related to social commerce. I definitely think social commerce is a sleeping giant. Culturally, are we there yet? I think we're moving there. It still may be a little bit early, but definitely we're already starting to see brands think about, like, how do I implement not only influencers to broadcast a message, but how do I think of live streaming influencers to actually release a product potentially? You're going to start seeing DTC brands start employing those tactics more and more.
We're too old.
Yeah.
You think about today's 10-year-old. They're going to be all over social commerce.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. Mike, one thing you referenced, Beta Brand, I know sort of does that model. They sort of test items in live, and then and I could be butchering the exact execution of this, but I believe they sort of test it, the reactions via live, and then use that as sort of their primary selling platform. But hot topic.
No expensive studios.
What's that?
No expensive studios. No expensive production. No team. No liability insurance. No craft foods.
It scales very, very well. Yeah. Eugene, you referenced it, and I think it's the hot topic, the topic du jour, all things Web3. You referenced NFTs. We got a question about it, so I figured we should maybe address it.
We got a question in the first 90 seconds about NFTs.
Yeah, I know. I had to let us keep going, but yeah, it's all right, what does everyone think about NFTs? Do you see the NFT market? And this is from Ben, by the way. What do you think about NFTs? Do you see the NFT market becoming so flooded that it will be unrealistic to make decent income from it? Are they even real? LOL. Does anyone want to take a crack at that?
Sure. Jack, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No. You go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, I'm super excited with where NFTs are going. I think at the moment we're at a kind of Wild West stage of NFTs where, it's new, it's exciting, it's the new shiny toy. Everyone's just trying to put it out there. But I still think how people are using NFTs at the moment isn't really what they were designed to be used for. I think there's only a very small handful of people that are doing it right at the moment, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think, at the moment with art, people are just putting out kind of like NFT art, all that kind of stuff. But really for me, the exciting thing is looking at NFTs in a different way. That NFTs could be used as like the new tickets to events, unlocking, VIP experiences. From a music standpoint as well, it's like, NFTs can really be a way for creators to take back their ownership of what they do. For example, a music artist, where traditionally they sign to a major label, they give 80% to the label royalties, they take 20%. Now, actually, with NFTs, for example, they can release music where they give that percent, which they would have given to label, they can actually give that royalty to their fans that are invested in them through NFTs. So it incentivizes the fan to kind of follow and support that artist that they love, but then also gives that money back to the artist that is essentially releasing the music. So I don't know. I think I'm super, super excited with where NFTs are going.
Yeah, I want to add to Jack. There's a lot of excitement. Obviously, there's a lot of dollars flowing in the space. Today's NFT market, I think it's like 2010 YouTube or online video, right? Wild, Wild West, a lot going on. Nobody knows where it's headed. So much fragmentation, etc. There's two sides of the coin in NFT. NFT, the spirit of it is decentralization, right? A lot more transparency. It's all on the blockchain, and it can all be tracked. There's a lot of cool, useful tools. Obviously, NFT art, but things like smart contracts, something Jack pointed to just in the music world. We see a lot of opportunity of even transfer of ownership. And in the music world, transfer of ownership is really hard, and it's bound by legal. And so making that more transactional, that's the really exciting part. The other side of the coin that we see this on, though, is because it's still the Wild Wild West, and without lack of regulation, which is interesting because it's supposed to be decentralized, we see a lot of issues around rights. There are a lot of creators who are very skeptical of this. They own IP. They don't want it distributed. They're afraid of it being distributed. There's a current, I believe, lawsuit going on right now where it's against OpenSea, two YouTubers. They're suing them because someone on there just created NFTs of these creators and their YouTube channel icons.
Oh, wow.
Like without like them involved, and they just started creating all these NFTs around high level influencers, and just basically their profile picture. So how do you face that world, right? How do you get real major buy-in when you have folks who are scared of that? So I feel like we need a content ID, and maybe this is a startup in the making there, where there is some sort of rights protection and enforcement around NFTs that are created around rights. So I think that's a must-have. That has to happen to really open the floodgates. But that said, that's just the NFT side. Web3 DAOs, there's a lot going on there. And I think the spirit of these DAOs is really interesting. We see this DAO, this Constitution DAO, where several hundred or thousand folks got together, banded their money together, issued tokens for a physical asset, and they wanted a community around that. We can see maybe a future network is built that way. The network, instead of regulated by founders who started this, raised venture money, and everything is regulated by that, by the creators themselves. Their voting power dictates where the DAO goes, or what's the spirit of the DAO. So there's a lot of interesting aspects there. We see potential creator platforms being created that way. But the case is, what does monetization look like? So we'll see where that pans out. Still very early innings on here. I think 2022 is going to flush out a lot of these things. And so that's what we're excited to see.
Awesome. I might mention for everybody that I just conducted a study in the United States of a sample of 2,000 people, 18 and above, around NFTs and blockchain in gaming and outside of gaming. So anybody wants to get in touch with me, I'm happy to give them a copy of that. I literally received it myself on Friday. But I will tell you this much, 41%, I think I mentioned it earlier, of 18 to 34-year-olds say that they would spend more money in a game happily if there was NFTs where they would own, could trade. And here's the big difference between a fad and a trend. We're not changing people's behavior. People already buy, collect, trade, sell. I mean, my 14-year-old nephew made $800 at dinner a couple of weeks ago trading baseball cards online. And this is a normal behavior. And now people are able to do it with virtual goods. I would love to own 1/1000th of a Picasso, particularly if I got a little picture of what I owned with a little stamp that I could put on my social or put in my backdrop. Or, Gene sounds like he's totally a DeFi devotee. I tend to be a cynic on how long these things will take. I think this is much bigger than people think. By the way, I've already had clients starting to pay me in tokens, in nodes, in things other than equity and options. And there's a whole class of crypto VCs that have erupted. And some of them are huge. Animoca is a gigantic company in the space. Galaxy. So Gene's very gung-ho, and I'm right behind him.
I see that you talked about kind of getting paid in crypto. We're seeing more and more of this, and we're going to actually even invest in product on this side. We do payments across the globe. Payments, for a lot of people don't know this, from the platforms still most of the time are USD. I think YouTube is the only one that does euros. But because of that, and as the creator economy is at global scale, how do you pay folks like in Venezuela or parts of Central Europe? Crypto tends to be kind of the common denominator. And I think we're going to see more and more of that. And it'll be really exciting to see if one of these platforms actually adopts this and thinks about how do we compensate our creators with the virtual currency. Creators, remember, the vast majority of them are young, right? They're under the age of 30. And, many of them are crypto forward or crypto native even. And so this is not even something that's new to them. So we'll see where adoption goes there.
Yeah, I think, my take on it is sort of distilling everyone's thoughts. It's really yes, it's early, but NFTs that provide utility have staying power. I think there's a lot of kind of these PFP communities launching all the time that, there's plenty of, kind of pump and dumps there, but big picture, the underlying kind of technology and use cases that are there make it so practical, we really can't ignore it. It's sort of like, I hate it when people say, oh, like NFTs are just JPEGs. It's like, no. That's like the thing you see. It's like everything underneath it is the value.
Absolutely.
All right, so we've got some other good questions here. This is one that I'm curious about. It's like way off from what we had in the sort of chat beforehand. But somebody was asking about long form content. Do you see creators doing more long form content in 2022, or will short form be the thing for them to focus on? I think this is relevant given the kind of adoption of the TikTok style format with shorts, reels, etc. So curious people's thoughts on that one. We can do this one.
I think short form is the king. I think long form, by the way, comedies generally have done better than dramas over time and earlier because they're shorter and less involved. I just don't think we're in a world today where people sit down outside of gaming, where people sit down and spend, 30 minutes, an hour. And quite frankly, a minute's great. I mean, sometimes I find TikToks are a little too long.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because we help pay over 1 million creators, and we've actually seen their duration of content get longer. Platforms like YouTube and Facebook, they reward watch time. The longer your video is, the more ad units they can sell within that. So to Mike's point, I think short form is, you're proving that you're worthy of watching, you're worthy of following, right? It's a great way for audiences to discover you. What your staying power may be long format content. There are creators who, aspire to get on Netflix. They aspire for scripted shows. And that's proof. The buyers at Netflix and the buyers at these other platforms look for that. They look for, is this a creator that we can involve and create more longer format content? Could they be adapted to that? So I do believe there are certain creators who are, they're native to short, and that's where they should stick with. But there are types of content creators we see who are growing their duration. They're growing their type of content because they want to be more packageable. They want to be more universal and have different product formats.
By the way, isn't live streaming both? In other words, live stream, on TikTok or anywhere else that, and you watch it for 2 minutes if you want to, or you can get absorbed in 30 minutes of it. Is because it's all kind of, if you will, non-scripted reality, the live streaming.
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry, Jack, I stepped on you.
Oh, sorry, Jack, were you about to say something?
I was just real quick, like I was, kind of just to tag on to that I think for going forward, I think short form is definitely the winner. I think just purely with people's habits, the young kids now, it's very quick. They move on very quick from content they're watching. So it has to be compelling, really, for long form content. It has to be compelling. The days of just creating a 30-minute video that's like a vlog style thing, I think is gone. I think really we're looking at high-end, essentially productions that you could pitch to like a Netflix or a YouTube Originals, things like that for long form now. And I think there's definitely a place for both, but I think for digestible content, short form, for sure.
Yeah. And Mike, I agree with your point. I sort of see it as like, it's not necessarily like an either or in my mind. It's sort of like there's a pie where your attention, there's a pie of all different types of content you can focus on. And like, sometimes you're going to want something long form. Sometimes you're going to want something short form. It's not an either or. It's like a diet, you don't just eat broccoli. You have a little bit of all these different things. I know me personally, like, whenever I hear people talk about like, oh, nobody pays attention to ads anymore, I think it's not because people have a short attention span. It's generally because the ads suck, because people will sit there and like watch a 3-hour-long podcast, which is wild, if you think about it.
Yep.
Good point on podcast. Big exception to what I said. We didn't mention it today. You're totally spot on. That's huge, Brendan.
Yeah. So also, I know we're coming up against time. Does everyone have a little bit of latitude? We had 2 more audience questions.
Yeah, Brandon, let's go tackle them.
All right, cool. So what new unique businesses do you see creators getting into 2022? Have we moved beyond the merch model yet?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I like
And
that
I
one.
don't know if the merch model goes away. I think it just extends and evolves. Recently, there was a creator who bought a floaty company or a pool floaty company. She acquired this because she saw an angle of, hey, there's products there I believe in that one, this is a standalone business. Could my brand associated this extend and scale this out even further? So I see actually creators who are diversifying not only their income stream from platforms and the types of creator driven revenue, but also investing in normal businesses. I think that creator also invested in gas stations, and somehow she wants to associate her name with that as well. We see certain travel creators and influencers who are putting their name on Airbnbs. So you can look for brand name Airbnbs. So again, it's an extension of this merch model, and what we're seeing creators are they diversify. We heard creators who are buying apartment complexes. They may not associate their brand to that, but they recognize they have income. Their window is short, and how do you best maximize returns? So we'll see creators going beyond just like the traditional merch, but for untraditional areas, like even the Mr. Beast, burger in itself. So I'm really excited to see how this pans out this year.
That and just on that as well, it's like I'm loving the switch now between creators turning into entrepreneurs. Very much to that point where I think even more so now where creators are starting to merge together to build businesses and brands. The newest one obviously with KSI and Logan Paul with their energy drink company. I think we're going to see a lot more of that where creators now are, to Eugene's point, they understand that their lifeline is short and is getting shorter and shorter.
Yep.
So they have to diversify, and there's going to be some really exciting and interesting companies I think that are going to come out. The Sidemen as well have just launched their vodka brand, the pop-up restaurants, as well as obviously having their merchandise as well. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that, which is super exciting.
Absolutely. And then I think it's worth noting too, all the private communities out there.
Absolutely.
Creators are making bank off of that. And then of course, I mean, last year, probably one of the biggest, consistently the biggest, I think, entertainment events were the, YouTuber boxing events. So it kind of feels like really any business.
No, it was the Fortnite concert.
What's that?
It was the Fortnite concert.
Oh yeah, and the Fortnite concert. Yeah. I don't know though. I feel like the Logan Paul Floyd Mayweather fight was,
more money for sure.
Bigger.
Yeah. A lot of people will talk crap about Jake Paul, Logan Paul coming in there, but we have to remember those audiences are aging, right? Those audiences who started young 10, 20 years ago are now in their 30s and 40s, if not 50s. And so it's a great way to bring new audiences. Sports overall has been declining viewership wise. How do you bring in more fresh eyeballs? How do you bring in this young audience? And so if I were these fighting, leagues or these promoters, I would be looking at creators who already have a baked in audience, right? And so I think this is just the start. We're going to look back 5-10 years from now. I think half the fighters out there are going to be starting somewhere on these platforms. We're going to see their journey. And you have to remember, these fighters now, who they're all already creators. A fighter like Brendan Lee is an Instagrammer. He's a well-known Korean American fighter out there who's rising through the ranks. He already had an audience, and they're subscribing to Showtime because of him. So I think we'll see this more. I think it's a great angle in, and I hope to see more creators get involved in this.
Yeah, it's a huge marketing arbitrage. It's like marketing is built in.
Absolutely.
All right. So, sorry. Go ahead.
I need to take off. I apologize.
Oh,
no problem.
We had a big merger today in the gaming industry, and I've got some calls to return.
No worries. No worries. Thanks, Mike. We'll, if you guys have a minute, we can just do the last question. It's a one word or one sentence takeaway. Sorry, I know we've gone a bit over. So I like this question. I've liked all these audience questions. Sorry, guys. Ryan asked, what are your thoughts on new creator platforms gaining popularity this year? Are there any smaller but still healthy social platforms that are on your radars? Take it away, guys. I have some thoughts.
I mean, it's not a small platform, but a platform that I don't think gets as much recognition is Discord. I'm super excited about what Discord are doing. I think we're at a stage now where creators, essentially to sum up everything that we've kind of been saying today, it's like creators are taking back ownership and taking back their audiences. And I think Discord is an amazing platform that kind of allows creators to really, more so than any other platform, engage, one-on-one with their audiences and build like a little world that is targeted to their diehard fans that they can kind of interact with, and build those communities. So yeah, not a small platform, but a platform that I think is kind of undervalued at the moment.
Completely agree.
To add to that, Jack, I think Discord in many ways is becoming kind of like the Bloomberg terminal for Gen Z. A lot of these new cryptos, a lot of the NFTs, even stocks are being discussed in these private communities. So absolutely, Discord is huge. In terms of like creator platforms, Triller is definitely one out there. They're going to go IPO this year, or supposedly an SPAC, and so time will tell how well that does. We're seeing more platforms come up in the DeFi Web3 space. There's one called Odyssey that's meant to be the YouTube of the Web3 world. What's interesting though is how do we get ad dollars? Because in the creator economy, everywhere outside of China, ad dollars is what's the fuel that keeps the engine moving. And so how do we get advertiser buy-in, marketer buy-in, one to help them feel comfortable at brand safety, but also consistency, and then just kind of fulfillment. So that's going to be interesting to see on that side of the world. There are a few startups that are originating. They're more insular, smaller social communities. And so, yeah, time will tell. But that said, I definitely believe we need more platforms out there. We need more diversity out there. We're seeing some platforms that are focused on specific types of creators. We see some platforms that are focused on for example, Kitsch, Brian Bedall launched one that's a live streaming platform for chefs and cooks. I forgot the name of it, but there's a new platform for Black creators, which I think is really interesting because it's focused on a specific community. So we'll see a lot more fragmentation on that. But who knows where this will go.
Yeah. I think one thing, Eugene, I'm kind of curious about is I feel like within the Web3 world, there's sort of this feeling that advertising was the internet's original sin. And I'm sort of curious to see how this sort of new generation of platforms evolve, and will they sort of monetize and grow based off of non-ad revenue? So that'll be sort of interesting, which, Discord is a good example of that, and they're off to a good start. This is amazing. I'm going to sort of recap what I took some notes as sort of the big takeaways that I heard. You guys can let me know if I miss anything or if there's anything else you want to shout out. But social commerce going to continue to explode, live commerce in particular. Yeah. NFTs that are that have utility. There's a place for all formats, long form and short. Any business can be a creator-driven business. And then from a platform standpoint, Discord, completely agree with that, as well as Eugene, what you were saying. I think there's definitely a ton of opportunity for a Web3 sort of native platform. You referenced Odyssey. I need to check that one out, but I definitely think there's a lot of opportunity there. Any parting thoughts? Anything we overlooked, guys?
Parting thoughts from my side, it's a great time, right? Like there's so much going on. I mean, Brendan, if you can look back even 5 years ago,
oh my gosh,
compare to the conversations where we are right now, there's just so much going on in the space. And that's the exciting part. There's a lot of investment dollars. There's more ad dollars, more players in the space. I feel like our time has finally come. We've been kind of in the dark ages, and now we got the spotlight shine us. I feel very fortunate to be with you guys and building alongside you guys as well. So thank you for the time too.
Absolutely.
And just a quick one from me as well, just to kind of tag on to Eugene. I really think is exciting for big and small creators. With this shift in, with what's going on with Web3, it really opens the door for any creator, big and small, to kind of stamp your authority. You know, who is going to be the next Mr. Beast of the Web3 world? And you know, and for me, that's exciting to see. You know, who's going to be creative enough and kind of take it with both hands and develop their content.
Awesome. This is great. I love this. Thanks for chatting, guys, and appreciate anyone who stuck around. I know we went a bit over time. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.